Thank you for your work last week. I appreciate the writing and the study that you did. I am a thoroughgoing dispensationalist. Well, I teach a course called Dispensationalism. In our discussions this week, we looked at two issues. One is the theological versus the biblical basis for covenant theology. The second was the covenants of works and grace and whether the terms are appropriate or not. So I just want to kind of draw a conclusion to last week's study, and we'll flesh some of this stuff out in the next few weeks as we work through both Ryrie's textbook and my notes. I would argue that covenant theology has a theological but not a biblical basis, that covenants of works and grace are not legitimate biblical covenants. Now, I understand most of the evangelical world is covenant in its approach, and most of the evangelical world has no problem with covenants of works grace. But if you remember in Prolegomena, you read showers, there is a difference. And if you don't quite remember, read it too quickly, or it's been too long ago, I would encourage you perhaps go back and reread his book, because that will help you in this understanding. So I am a dispensationalist. I reject covenant theology. You saw the theological arguments. Excuse me, let me turn that up. You saw the theological arguments. I don't think they're very strong. There are a few biblical arguments that can be raised for the basis of covenant theology and for the covenant of works and the covenant of grace. Now, certainly, Adam and Eve in the garden had the opportunity to be obedient and therefore to remain perfect. But I would suggest that was not based on works. We'll talk about this a little later, but I would suggest that this was based on faith. Adam and Eve would not have been kept perfect by doing works. Adam and Eve would have been kept perfect by, in faith, believing what God said, and then, based on that faith, doing what God had commanded. If they had genuinely believed, then they would not have sinned. It was not a lack of obedience. It was a lack of faith, and that lack of faith produced disobedience. I don't think there was a covenant of works in the garden, any more than the Mosaic Law is a covenant of works, because the law, as Moses wrote it, both in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, declares, keep the law and you shall live. Well, that's not salvation by works. The idea is, if in faith you obey, you will be saved. So the key is faith. So we're going to study this whole concept from a dispensational perspective. Now, I realize because of the background of many of you, you may have a covenant theological background. And that's fine. You're going to have to sort this out, figure out where you stand and where you're going to come down on this issue. The rest of this class is going to be focused on dispensational thinking, a dispensational approach to Scripture, and a dispensational approach to history. And so whether you agree with it or not, I hope that it's helpful to you and that you will learn much as we work our way through these coming weeks of class. Thanks again for all that you did last week. Look forward to reading more of your works.